Jon Scheyer, by the way, we talked with him at ACC Tip-Off about this exact thing. He is completely aware of what he is in college basketball.
You're the guy that followed the guy.
The guy that followed the guy. And he's done it a few times. He's the guy that followed J.J. Redick in kind of that role for Duke as a player. Now he's the guy that's following Coach K in that role as head coach. So he is the guy that follows the guy, and he knows expectations are high, right? He knows the reason why he's not remembered as a player as the guy that followed J.J. Redick is because he went and won a national championship. And there's a similar playbook for not being remembered as the guy that followed K, right? You have to go win things of great and lofty value, and national championships being the thing. After 2 years, it's interesting to look at his strengths and weaknesses and see what they need to do better. But I think it's also important to look with context on how good they actually were. Shout out to Connor O'Neill, who covers both Wake Forest and Duke. Great Twitter follow if you're a college basketball fan. He put it out there that Jon Scheyer has gone 27-9 in each of his first 2 seasons in Duke's as Duke's head coach. He has a ACC tournament championship. He's finished 4th and 2nd in the ACC standings in the regular season. He has an Elite 8 appearance, and he's cranked out 2 first-round picks, plus however many first-round picks he gets in this year.
Probably 2.
That's unless they want to come back and be a part of what they have working next year. So 2+. We'll call it 2+ first-round picks.
Yeah.
That's a really good resume through two seasons.
Yeah.
Everywhere, maybe except for like 3 schools, and he happens to be coaching one of them.
Yeah.
Where they count in Final Fours and championships almost exclusively. Here's the part that I think is interesting. He did all of that. I'm not denying any of it. Those are numbers. Connor did not make them up. Those are factually accurate. It still feels a bit like he did less with more. And I say it for this season specifically. I say that for this reason. They returned 4 starters from an ACC tournament championship last year. They had the 2nd best recruiting class in the country. That, to me, smells like championship or bust expectations, right? When you throw those 2 things together, it's very difficult to have wiggle room. And by the way, as a coach, that's what you're setting yourself up for. You want to be in a situation where you've assembled so much talent that anything other than a championship is a disappointment. So when you have that much talent, that much rating, that much whatever you want to call it, right? Number 2 in the preseason rankings this year, when it all started, the AP polls and the like, it does feel a bit like an Elite 8 appearance and a quick bow out of the ACC tournament and a 2nd place finish in the ACC, while some programs might, try to find a way to hang that banner.
Yeah.
For him, it feels like he's doing a little less with more. And to get even more specific, here's the problem I have. Compare the 2 losses in the NCAA tournament that Jon Scheyer's had. Last year against Tennessee.
They got bullied.
There you go. This year against NC State. There's a lot of bullying that took place again. The Tennessee game, for the very, just at its most basic level, exposed a fairly large flaw in their roster, which is for lack of a better term, they didn't have the enforcer. Right? They didn't have the person that could fight physical with physical. If you look back through Duke's history, right, there are those players, right? There's the stronger ones. I'm thinking of like the Dante Jones, right? Who was a transfer, by the way, way back before that was cool. I'm thinking of the Sheldon Williams. I'm thinking of the Boozers. I'm thinking of for lack of a better way to put it, even somebody like Leitner wasn't going to get pushed around. Right, might step on your chest, but there wasn't that on last year's roster. Then you go out and get the 2nd ranked recruiting class, and you still don't have that guy. You still don't have those guys, that group, whatever it is. Like maybe it was Sean Stewart, but he didn't play enough for us to see it. He did have, by the way, in their loss to NC State, he had a couple unreal athletic plays. Oh yeah, he had a goaltend where he, if he would have been 7 inches, 8 inches to the right, he would have had to duck to not hit the rim with his forehead. And couple fouls, couple of bodies like that. I can't get over the fact that Duke last year seemingly had everything but, and then this year they had everything but the same thing. And if Jon Scheyer is the recruiter that we think he is, and by the way, he is, all he had to do was choose one of those guys to go get, and he would have gone to get him, right? Like his cast to reel in the recruit ratio is unreal, right? It's if he offers you, there's a good chance he's going to find a way to get you on campus. So that to me is the next evolution. It's the year-to-year recognition. It's the year-to-year. I know every team is its own microcosm, right? Every season is its own living, breathing beast, and I get it. But if you're going to return 4 starters, that's almost like a cheat code. It's like you return 4 starters, it's a very similar team. You know what the struggle is going to be. Solve that, the struggle won't be there, yet it was.
We saw that. Here's the thing. Right down the road, you have 4 returning starters from a national championship game team in UNC. They didn't even make the tournament the next year. So, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you have 4 returning starters. But here's the thing. Duke's still a really young roster. Like, when you look at it, outside of Jeremy Roach and then Ryan Young coming off the bench, it's still a super young team. Maybe they do have that guy. They just haven't learned to be it yet, at least at the college level.
They are young, but you have to consider, like, time to departure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I get what you're saying.
Like they may be sophomores and freshmen, but they also are kind of seniors, right? Because like if Jared McCain declares to go pro, it doesn't matter if like by his junior year he would have been that enforcer, right?
Sure.
If Sean Stewart or TJ Power, because they didn't play much this year, hit the transfer portal, and then there's somebody else's enforcer 2 years from now, it's not like, well, good thing we helped them get there. So part of that will be decided later on, right? Part of that there's no way to know for certain. But it is a situation where I think the next step for Jon Scheyer, and by the way, it's his second year as a head coach. Let's be understanding of that. I think the next step in his evolution as a head coach is recruiting a complete kind of core nucleus, which includes every role, right? It does feel like he's really good at getting lead singers. Sometimes you got to recruit a bassist. You know what I mean? Even if they're not a top 20 recruit in the country, if the 80th recruit fits your nucleus better, go get the 80th. And by the way, that's not scraping the bottom of the barrel. Like
no, it's not.
80th recruits still.
There are a lot of programs out there like, we'll take a top 100 player.
Yeah, we'll take a top 200 player. But it's something to monitor going forward. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan.
I will say this one more thing on that.
Go ahead.
He took a step as a team, as a program, as a whole. They progressed, I think. They went from second round to Elite Eight. But that's the end of the day. That's the end result, right? How far did you go in the tournament? You went from
so step back in the ACC tournament, step forward in the NCAA
tournament. Whereas you saw with Hubert Davis, national championship game, missed the tournament to Sweet 16. So like up, down, up, down. At least we saw from year 1 to year 2, like progressing in terms of how far are you going into the postseason.
Hubert Davis, I'll give him credit for this. And obviously we would have been having a very similar conversation to the one we're having about Jon Scheyer last year. But what he did was he picked the core he wanted to build around. Yeah. It was RJ Davis and Armando Bacot. Knew they needed shooters around him, went and hit the transfer portal for versatile players that can shoot and another rebounder in Harrison Ingram. That's the type of like complete roster building. None of those guys he brought in, from Cormac Ryan to Harrison Ingram to any of the transfers, none of them had an overlapping skill set. Not like, oh, they're all high usage players. They were all fitting into a role. They were recruited for a role. Mm-hmm. That's something that I think coaches learn as they go along. It's not just about getting the best players. Sometimes it's about getting the right fit.